Right. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be moving forward with my series on the magic of Belle Vie Writers. So I actually just posted today the video of the conversation that I had with Dr. Jasmine Cobb. So that is available on YouTube now. So make sure that you check that out and you can like, subscribe, comment, all the things related to the YouTube channel. Today I have with me Dr. Wesley Barker, and we are going to get into like the magic of Belle Vie Writers, obviously, because that is the main event here. But also, I want to talk a little bit about just like that managing the combination of writing and professoring, especially during the pandemic time when we first got started and beyond, and also writing and administrative responsibilities because you have taken on some additional duties since we first got started back in 2020. So, of course, I'm Dr. Catherine Sophia Bell, and I'm a Black woman who did all the things that Black women are told we're supposed to do. I was raised in the church. I was married for 17 years. I had 4 kids. I had all the degrees. I had the successful career. I had it all, and I felt trapped by all of it. So I liberated myself. I got happily married and delightfully divorced. I walked away, resigned slash retired from a 20-year career as an academic, and I put my energy and effort and time into Belle Vie Academy, which includes, of course, Belle Vie Writers, which we're going to talk about today. And we have like we have like high achievers and exit strategies and Professor Playbook on the Belle Vie Writer side of it. And then I've decided to describe the other aspect of it, which I usually say is like the interpersonal aspect of it. But I've decided to describe that as the Liberation Lounge because that's like the happily unmarried, delightfully divorced, erotically empowered side of things. And so basically, like I took inventory of like what are the things that I love about the work that I do and how can I continue to do that and really put my energy into that and what are the things that I don't love and I can walk away from. And I realized the things that I loved, I didn't actually need to still be a professor in the academy to do. So that was like kind of my transition point out of academia and into kind of creating my own academy. But today we have with us Dr. Wesley Barker, who's one of the OG members of Belle Vie Writers when we got started back in 2020. And so Dr. Wesley Barker earned a PhD with a concentration in comparative literature and religion from Emory University. Her research and teaching focus on philosophy of religion, continental philosophy and ethics, feminist philosophy, critical theory, and political theology. Her scholarship examines the intersections of gender theory, philosophy, religion, and ethics. And Dr. Barker is author of A Desire Beyond Identity, Irigaray, and the Ethics of Embodiment with SUNY Press, which just came out this year in 2025. This is the book that she was working on when we first got started. And she's also the co-author of Identity, Irigaray, and the Ethics. Oh, no, that's the single author book. Co-author of the forthcoming Thresholds of Irigaray, Relation Through Difference, which is also coming out with SUNY in 2026. We're going to talk about both of those books coming out with SUNY too. And she's now the chair of the Department of Liberal Studies at Mercer University in the College of Professional Advancement. So we're going to get into all of the elements of that, or at least those latter few elements of that bio in this conversation today. But welcome to the YouTube channel.
Thank you, Catherine. I cannot thank you enough for all the things um and for what La Belle Vie Academy has been for me. I'm still like trying to get the courage up to think through all of the different elements of academic life and what I
Yeah.
need to let go and what's nourishing and what isn't. But
Yeah.
certainly the experience with you and with the cohort was just it's been incredible and I was really excited to jump back in this year.
Yes, I'm glad. I was glad to see you jump back in, and I'm glad that your book is actually out. So I was like, oh, I really do want to talk to the people whose books have come out in the time that we've been doing this, so that because like book writing can be such a long-term process, right? And actually, one of the things Jasmine and I were talking about last week is that a lot of times when we think about books, we think about like those last 2 years before the book comes out. But most book projects are like an 8 to 10 year enterprise. When you think about like from the initial thought about it to the research to the writing to just all the things that go into getting a book out in the world. And so I'm excited to see like the books that are out in the world that have come out of La Belle Vie Writers, people who were involved in or are involved in La Belle Vie Writers. So let's talk a little bit about like how did you first hear about La Belle Vie Writers? Like how did you even end up being in the space?
Yeah, my friend Ruth Ann Crapo Kim is the one who put me in touch with La Belle Vie Writers, and
Mhm.
it was I guess that first 6 weeks were
Yeah.
sort of like an experiment, right?
Yes.
And I believe you were working on your
The
like
Beauvoir Bell
proofs.
book.
Were you finishing the proofs at that point? I can't
No,
remember.
no, no. I was still like, I still hadn't sent it out for review yet. It was like, I was like, okay, I'm in the final push. I really need to be in community. Like the pandemic was going on, all the things were happening. And I was just like, okay, who wants to write with me for like 6 weeks so that I can get this across the finish line? And of course, it's like the time optimism. Like I wasn't going to finish that in 6 weeks. So it was like 1 6 weeks turned into another 6 weeks, turned into another 6 weeks, turned in like, we're still going 5 years later.
But that was the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, so I that year, I had just, I'm trying to think. So that was 2020, spring of 2020. And I was trying to get an article out. And so I was like, well, that's a good time period to get the article out. But then when we kept going, I used that as the opportunity to get the book out, which
Yeah.
I really needed to do. And it became part of a sabbatical project. And so so it all started just at that very Ruth Ann making, sending me a link. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'd love to be part of this if you'll have me. And it was
Yes.
amazing.
Well, I love you also mentioning that your initial focal point was getting the article out because everybody in the space is not necessarily, I mean, a lot of people are working on books, but some people are in more article focused disciplines, or some people, like I remember at one point there was a woman in there who's working on like a cookbook who was like in the UK, but initially like from the African diaspora. So it's been an interesting, beautiful mix of people in the space. So I love you mentioning like, oh, you figured in a 6 week period you could focus on getting the article out, but then once we kept going, you were like, oh, this is a space that I can actually advance my book project in.
And I think it was that first 6 weeks, and you had said, it takes 6 weeks or something to build a habit. And
Yes.
so true because I had never written like that in a sort of sustained habitual way. And
Hmm.
it was it was really transformative because then I took that forward to a much bigger project that I was so afraid to tackle that had been sitting
Mm.
there. I mean, all the work had been done, right?
Yeah.
It's the writing that's so hard and sitting with it. And what I love about the program was that it's like it got to the point. Eventually, I realized I didn't have to beat myself up if I had a bad day of writing because the next day we had the next day and then the day after that and just
Yes.
support of the group was just really it it was transformative. I mean, I know that
Yeah.
sounds kind of cliche, but it truly was for
Yeah.
my writing.
I love you naming these different elements because a lot of times people will the study, and now I'm forgetting who did the study about like how long it takes to build a habit, but a lot of times people will cite 21 days as building a habit, but it's like a minimum of 21 days, but it's like up to 12 up to 6 weeks really for to really establish a habit. And so again, I don't even, it was some kind of intuitive, magical, divine, whatever for me to think about it in 6 week increments. And then we would like take 2 weeks off and then do 6 weeks more. So I love that was just the flow that came to me, but it ended up working and aligning with this kind of habit formation. And I love you naming like, okay, up to this point, I actually didn't have a writing habit, but being in that group for 6 weeks just really transformed the connection to the daily writing. And like you said, if you have a bad day with writing, if you're only writing 1 day a week or 1 day a month, then that can completely derail you. But when you have this daily writing habit, if you have a day that's off, it's okay because you know you're getting back to it the next day.
And what made that sort of ring true even more was the sharing that we would do at the end, because then, someone has a rough day and you're like, oh, I'm not the only one, because writing can be so isolating, right? Especially in an academic context. It just can be, well, in any context, but certainly when you're in the academy. And so it was yeah, it was refreshing too. The sharing was as important. Sharing with other people is as important as the accountability itself.
I love that so much because so the way it's set up for people who are not privileged at this point to be in this beloved writing writing
Oh
community.
yeah.
The setup is like generally in the mornings we write the writing time, like the explicit writing time is between like 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you could kind of pop in and pop out. So you don't have to be there the whole two hours, but it was just like whatever time you have to show up, like pop in, get some writing done, pop out if you have to. And then at the end of that writing time, I would do like the kind of check-in group coaching thing where people would share. And yes, it is beautiful to hear like progress that can inspire you to progress on your own projects, but also the challenges and things that were coming up with people. And I appreciate you naming like how I do think in academia, I think writing in general, but in academia in particular, there is this image of like the kind of lone star, the person either in the ivory tower or like the person in the cave or on the mountain or whatever the case may be. But there's this like isolated, alienated kind of experience. Like we're not taught to write in community or encouraged to write in community.
Right.
And this space provided a community to do the writing where it didn't feel so isolating and so alienating.
Well, and interestingly enough, that the sharing from the check-ins, there were there is a chapter. Well, it actually didn't just shape the writing process, it shaped my writing. So I ended up incorporating and reflecting on aspects of my writing that I wouldn't probably, well, I know I wouldn't have otherwise, or wouldn't have thought about them in the same ways. And I think that was really um, sharing the space with that writing, with that particular group of women. Um, it impacted even the content of my work, which I'm grateful for that. And of course, it's in my acknowledgments.
It is in your acknowledgement. That's a great segue because, of course, I pulled the quote from your acknowledgement. So you said in the acknowledgments, everybody who's book, shout out to everybody who's published a book while in La Belle Vie Writers and put us in the acknowledgments because, of course, I love and appreciate that. But so you write, thanks to philosopher Catherine Bell and her writing book La Belle Vie, I was able to cultivate a new relationship to writing. The women of that group inspired me to push through the most frustrating days of the process. They have my deepest gratitude for including me in their collective. Thank you for that beautiful acknowledgement. But you've shared a little bit more about what that really looked like for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's and things I can't even remember now because I had to cut like 40 pages of footnotes. But in there was in my one of my chapters, like we had talked about June Jordan,
Hmm.
in just in one of the check-ins,
Yeah.
an article about June Jordan had come up, um, and so that just prompted me to go look at that,
Yeah.
and then I started thinking about concepts of survival, and
Mm.
because I was already doing work on Audre Lorde, and so
Yeah.
um, but just the conversations from this writing group that was
Yes.
so interdisciplinary, and not just
Yes.
interdisciplinary, but we had artists and
Yes.
um, journalists, and so from all over, and yet that kind of the connections that we made, I mean, they were impactful for my work too. And
Yes.
it was, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know, it was divine, serendipitous, what I'm not
Yes.
really sure how to describe it, but
Yes. No, I appreciate you naming all of those elements because it's a very interdisciplinary group. Mostly humanities and liberal arts. I don't think we have any STEM, maybe some social scientists, but not any like, kind of science. Not that social science isn't science, but not like engineers or anything. And even though
right.
I've coached some people from STEM, but there weren't any of them in this particular writing group. But yeah, such a wide range of disciplines and people themselves who are interdisciplinary, but like everybody from philosophers to religious folks to, like you said, social, journalists like Charity Elder is a
Mhm.
journalist who was writing a book in the group, and her book has since come out as well. I did an IG live with her, but I haven't done the YouTube interview with her yet. And then also across ranks. So we had like a few people who were like graduate students finishing up, or we still do have now different ones, but who were like finishing up comprehensive exams and shifting to the dissertation, or people who were assistant professors going up, doing their first book for promotion to associate, or people who were already associating going up for promotion to full. So it was very like faculty across ranks, advanced graduate student and faculty across ranks, and still is that. and intergenerational. So I think that was also powerful to see people like at different stages professionally in their career, but also different stages in life. And
Mm.
being able to like come and be your full self in that space to talk about all the things. Yeah.
I know it makes me wish I wasn't stuck in my chair all the time.
Well, you've
Chair
you've
that had a
pulled
power
yourself
plant
you've
and
pulled
literally,
yourself out of the administrative thing and into the writing group a few times. We're going to get to that a little bit more,
yeah,
but let's talk a little bit more about your about your book project itself and the origins. And I also want to talk about like let's start with the single author book that's already out, and then we'll get to the co-authored book. But like, what was that general origin story for you for that book project? Like, how did you start that book project, and what excites you about it, things like that, how it's been received at this point. But I also want to get to because you did go from you initially were thinking it was going to go with one press and then you ended up with a different press. And so I think that's going to be helpful for some people who may be in that process themselves. So I want to talk about the book itself, but then I also want to get to just what that process was like with you thinking it was going to be with one press and then deciding to pivot with that.
sure, sure. Yeah, so I mean, speaking of a long process, I mean, in many ways, the book came out of my dissertation that I never published. Um, but then I wrote so much during our time together that it ended up being two books that I cut in half, but
I
I'll get
love
to
it.
that in a second, um, which is the next project. So I did my work was primarily on Luce Irigaray, French feminist well, Belgian, but feminist psychoanalyst and philosopher. And so that's who I'd been working on for most of my career. And I proposed as part of a sabbatical, because of course sabbaticals are project oriented now. They're more like research leaves, right?
As opposed to the Sabbath and resting, it's like, what are you going to work on while you're on this sabbatical? Yeah.
Exactly. I've never worked so hard, well, until I became department chair. But that's way less fun. I will say, I worked so hard on the book through the writing group, but I enjoyed the process, which I never thought I would say. Like I long to have uh time to just sit and write again. But so as part of my proposal, I said that I had inquired with am I allowed to say the press? Is that okay? Oh, wait, I lost you.
No, no, I'm sorry. It's up to you. So if you want to say the press, you can, but you don't have
Oh,
to.
well, so I was gonna go to one press,
Okay.
press whatever, we'll call it press C.
Yeah.
Um, and they said I proposed it. They said, yeah, this looks good. Send us, but I had not written a book before. So they said, send us the manuscript when it's done.
Hmm.
And even gave me some feedback, recommendations. We'd love it to be, I think they said it can't be too radical, was the way it was described, or
Oh,
something.
that's interesting.
And there are no, or something like that, but it made me think like, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
Like who's radical, right? And I
That's interesting. So I didn't hear this part of the story before. So they were already on the front end, kind of had like giving you a box to make sure that you stayed within. Okay.
well, and I think the problem was, I'm in my work, I've always been very kind of I guess I'm just more literary in my approach, and
Hmm.
so I tend to focus on nuance. And I the charge was like, no, make it more radical, like make it more exciting and again radical. And I still am like, I still don't know what that means.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I know how I can think about it, but I don't know what they wanted. So
Hmm.
I wrote with La Belle Vie, wrote a draft of the manuscript and submitted it. It went to the series editors. The series editors are like, yes, all aboard. Um, Telling the acquisitions editor is like, yeah, well, we just published some stuff on Irigaray.
Mm.
And like within the year that I
Hmm.
completed it, and they said, we'll keep it open. Um, but if you want to shop it elsewhere, do. And
Mm.
so I did. And
Okay.
I went through, a bunch of presses. And what's interesting is from the very beginning, I knew SUNY publishes a lot of works on Irigaray. I knew that it was a great press for in terms of fit, but I
Hmm.
also wanted to try to branch out and see if I could, take it elsewhere. But then it ended up at SUNY, and I'm so glad because they were fantastic throughout the
Yeah.
process. And they helped me turn the one big book into I split it in half and
Hmm.
I'm working on the second part now for a new book proposal. So
I love this story so much because on the one hand, it can be very discouraging to like have cultivated a relationship with like a series editor who's like, saying, yes, we love this, we would love to move forward with it. And then things kind of breaking down with the acquisitions editor, like having gotten that far in the process. And so I do want to I'm glad that you named that because for some people it's always it feels like it's just like yeah and then I went here and then it just worked out and there were no issues, but it's like sometimes you run into these hiccups, but it sounds like this is something that ended up working out better for you going to a different press that ended up being a good fit because you not only were able to break one project into two different book projects, right? But you also have this edited project that is coming out. And so they were interested both in the single author project as well as the edited project. And sometimes the press is like, we want the single author thing, but we're not necessarily interested in anthologies or co-edited things. So it sounds like SUNY ended up being a really good fit for you for multiple reasons.
they were, and I have to say, the reviewers, oh my gosh, I was so grateful for the reviewers and the work they did. And um, so yeah, hats off to them for finding those reviewers because
Yes.
it wasn't you I didn't even one of the people wasn't on my list of
Hmm.
recommendations, and I was like, this is amazing that they got this person to review it. And
Yes.
yeah, I was very, very pleased with the
I
product.
love that. And the reviewers can make it, I mean, it's kind of a running joke for peer reviewed anything like reviewer number two is usually the problematic reviewer. But how many reviewers did it go out to? And what did you find, like, what was enriching and helpful about the feedback that you got from the reviewers?
So I don't know how many total it went out to. I know they received two, and they received two green light, they received two positive reviewers and went with that.
Okay.
Friend who I think has a book at Oxford that was like still kind of sitting there because they're waiting on another, like I think they do at least three, maybe four.
Yes,
Um,
my book was with Oxford and they sent it out to four reviewers and it definitely elongated the process, the publication process because it's hard to get two reviewers, let alone four,
right.
and with people who are busy and doing a lot of things. But yeah.
Yeah. And I was so grateful. I think if there had been a question from the reviewers, like, or hesitation, then they would have
Sent
gone
it
with
out.
the third reviewer.
Yeah.
Um, because the edited volume went out to three reviewers.
Okay.
Uh, so I just think it kind of depends on
It
the
depends on the
situation.
press and it depends on like the editor and how comfortable they feel like kind of advocating or pushing for a project. But again, I think it's good to name for people who are unfamiliar with the process. Like generally things will go out to two reviewers. If you have two positive reviews, it kind of will get a green light and usually go forward. If you have one positive and one kind of neutral or not so positive, then they'll probably send out for a third reviewer as like a kind of tiebreaker. And then there are some presses that just send it out to four reviewers because that's just whatever
They
their
feel like they
process
have
is
to.
because they feel like they have to. Okay. And then what was that like for you for the co-edited one? So you said it ended up going out to three reviews. Did they initially send it out to three reviewers or was it kind of a two reviewer and they wanted a third opinion?
I think they sent it out to three originally, ended up
Okay.
getting two positive, and I don't even know if they got the third reviewer.
Okay. Okay. But
Um,
they were like, we're good with these two.
yeah, we're good with the two
Yeah.
because it got, again, as long as it gets really good reviews.
Yeah.
But something that you said, I will say with the single authored volume
Hmm.
book, I the reviewers, one of the things that I appreciated most, and it makes me realize like when I'm reviewing how I want to be,
Yeah.
they were so careful with they were remarkably careful, given
Yeah.
you know that they have a
So
million
much to do.
things to do,
Mhm.
and pointed out they were charitable in the read, like they
Mhm.
pointed out places that needed to be developed or questions that they had, or um, even tensions in the book,
Mhm.
tensions that I knew were there, but I couldn't find my own way through.
Mhm. Mhm.
And however the ways that they worded that, just hearing or seeing someone else read your work
Mhm.
provides a different perspective that then you're like, oh, light bulb, like this is what I was trying to say.
Mhm.
It's just so just I think when you watch, I say watch, like when you read someone else try to make sense of what you're doing, it gives a
Yes.
very different experience than the one
Mhm.
that, you're when you're birthing it as the writer, right?
Yes, because you have your own relationship to the project that you've been with for so long. And then sometimes, like, there are ways in which you're intimately acquainted with it, but also ways in which you're too close to it to kind of see
Yep.
the big picture sometimes. And so, this is something that I do actually appreciate about the peer review process when it's done well and when it's done right, and you get good reviewers, right? So, it's important to like be with a press that gets your project and gets who would be, and you can also recommend reviewers as well. But it's wonderful when you have like very generous, generative reviewers who like take the time to really, like you said, see the nuance and see the tensions and articulate that to you in a way that you can make more sense of it or clarify or crystallize some things for the readers that will have it after that. So in that way, the review process does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah, well, and that's beautifully. I love the crystallized. I love that metaphor. That's great.
Yes. Well, so your book came out just this year. Do you have a sense yet of how it's been received or anything like that? Or have you had an opportunity to do any book talks or anything like that? Like, what has the life of it been? Even though I know it's like kind of hot off the presses this year, earlier this year.
It's so the paperback just came out, but I've had some really positive feedback on it already, which
Hmm.
I was like, oh, no one's gonna read it. It's horrible, but all the things. And I've heard some really great things about it, from people who are friends, so maybe they're blowing me up a little bit, but they're academics, so they're critical too. Um, I've had, I'm there's like a regional, I'm part of the American Academy of Religion,
Hmm.
and they're doing the philosophy of religion section is going to do a book panel
Oh, nice.
in March, and I'm really excited because they're great people on the panel,
Hmm.
um, and I can't wait. And they're wonderful. Like I love them as people, but also I'm getting ready because I know they're going to come. Like they're not going to, no holds barred, right? Um, and they so I'm excited about that. And then I don't know for sure, but there have been discussions from people in the Irigaray circle about possibly doing a book panel at
Okay.
the Irigaray Circle conference in Newcastle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm really, and they had said that they said the book was great. So like, okay, I'm glad
Yes.
someone thinks it's great.
Very good. I love it. I'm glad you're getting some positive feedback on the book, especially so early on because it is, kind of hot off the presses. It just came out this year. So I'm glad that it's already been read and has already been read and is being well received up to this point. And so you mentioned in terms of like book talks that you're doing up to this point, you have like a author critic, or now sometimes they call them author reader sessions at the American, was it Religious Association?
American Academy of Religion
American Academy of
regional,
Religion.
yeah, their Southeast region meeting. And then I'm part of a roundtable at the National Women's Studies Association this year
Oh,
in
nice.
Puerto Rico.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, I'm going to be talking about the book there,
Yes.
and then
I
hopefully,
love the different spaces that you're in as well because you have this combination of like some philosophy, some religious studies, and even with the Irigaray stuff, there's like some psychoanalysis stuff that's always in there. And so I'm glad you have like her circle as well as like NWSA as well as like religious studies. So this is beautiful. Like I think it speaks to the different audiences you are in conversation with. So I think that's a good thing. How are you feeling about that?
um, I mean, I've never felt like I have a home
Hmm.
way. And so it's interesting because I will say, oddly enough, even though my PhD is in religion, I feel like religion's the place that I make the least sense.
Oh, as far as like it doesn't necessarily translate to that audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the philosophy of religion, it works because the philosophy of religion had been so kind of mired in analytic philosophy that
Hmm.
I'd say the last 20 years at least, well, probably, golly, forget how old, time flies, right? Let's say 30 years, 30 to 40 years. Uh,
Yeah.
the of an embrace of continental, so that's good. So it just you have to be in conversation with the right people in those fields,
Hmm.
those disciplines rather,
Yeah.
or to find your home.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also something important to think about for, again, people who are watching who may be more into, like, you may have a degree. Some people have interdisciplinary degrees, like the nature of what their discipline is. Like, especially, I think this is especially true for people who do like women's gender sexuality studies or like Africana studies. There's kind of a built-in interdisciplinarity sometimes to those doctoral programs. But I think for people who have a degree in like, literature or religion or philosophy or whatever the case may be, but if you have interdisciplinary interests, it's like you're simultaneously making sure that you do what you need to do according to the expectations of that particular discipline. And that might be the discipline of your degree or just the discipline of the department you're in that you're earning tenure in, right? But you're in conversation with these other people, and it's like managing straddling multiple worlds simultaneously. I mean, of course, all my degrees are in philosophy, so but I've always been, I joke that I'm like poly in multiple aspects of my life because I've always done, even within philosophy, I've done like the American Philosophical Association and like Society for Phenomenology and Existential Philosophy, but I also did like the Caribbean Philosophy Association and like the Radical Philosophy Association, and then I founded like Collegium of Black Women Philosophers. So I was always able to be in multiple spaces within philosophy, but always with the people that I wanted to be in community in. So I never felt like I had to like adapt to a kind of space that wasn't interested in what I was doing, and I wasn't really interested in what they had to say about what I was doing. But finding a space of the people that that I could actually be in productive conversation with. And then in terms of like outside of philosophy, like I do love NWSA. I've gone to several, that's the National Association or the National Women's Studies Association. I've done American Studies Association, even though I've
Mhm.
never been like in an American Studies department, but they're always also interesting. I've done some political theory associations, especially when I was doing like the Arendt book, because she's read as much as a political theorist as a philosopher. So, I say that to say, like, just listening to both of our experiences for people again watching, it's like finding where your community is, where you can be in productive conversation about whatever, or, enriching, engaging conversation about whatever figures or topics or themes that you're taking up.
And that's so true, Catherine. I feel like sometimes when you're in grad school and you're in this little, you're in this kind of isolated community, like a community, I'm going to like religious communities in my mind. So I do religion after all. But like,
Right.
um, but that when you're in a field or you're doing your thing in graduate school,
Hmm.
you're doing something different from what other people are doing. It's, connected, but you're still doing your own thing and ideally
Hmm.
make your own way. But then you feel like, well, who are all the people doing what I'm doing? And
Hmm.
a lot of times you don't know. And I remember
Yeah.
for like a decade, I was in going to religious studies conferences and I'm like, no one cares about this work. I
Mm.
or like, when I first talked to people in the Irigaray circle, and they're going to SPEP and all these. I'm like, these are my people.
Yeah.
Well, but I didn't know that because I
Hmm.
wasn't. And then, when you're interdisciplinary, sometimes it's really hard to find the conversations, like you said,
Yeah.
that really nourish you and find your people and
Hmm.
read the same things in different way, or sorry, who are reading what you're reading. Um, like you said, reading Arendt and as a political philosopher, but also, reading her in terms of like feminist work, like all of
Yeah.
the other ways that you can think about things and finding those people is really it's important for I think for your career, not in terms of networking, although that's important,
Yeah.
but honestly just to like as just to nourish and
Yeah, for your
There's
own
not,
sanity, so
yeah,
that you don't
for
feel just
sanity.
isolated. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like because sometimes, because if you're somebody who's kind of the odd person out in your department or in your discipline, then you can be made to feel or be convinced that like that nobody cares about what you're doing. And you find out there's a whole other group of people over here who think what you're doing is the best thing ever and love to do that thing and would love to be in conversation with you about that. So I think it is important. It's like, yes, know what's expected in your discipline or your department or whatever, but it's always important to like stretch yourself beyond and not spread yourself thin, but just explore outside of just whatever your kind of, what your discipline or what your department may be doing. And for me, I find it helpful even with because I have friends in different disciplines. So there's a one of my besties, Shirley Modi Turner. We co-founded the Anna Julia Cooper Society, and she's in literature and like Africana studies. But I would always go with her to the American Literature Association conference, or I've gone to like MLA. Which is I don't even remember what MLA stands for, but it's like the Modern Language Association. So like I've gone to different conferences and sometimes I've presented at those different conferences and other times I've just attended to be, to see what people are talking about. But it's important to explore different areas and arenas and see, like you said, where your people are and where you can connect and be in conversation and not feel so isolated and alienated or as if like what you're concerned about is like nobody cares about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true.
Yeah. Okay, so what has been happening in your life since so I know the book just came out this year. We're going to definitely get to this administration thing because I feel like that's probably the major change that's happened. But is there anything else, like what shifted for you with the book coming out, right? Like there's this long process of getting the book out. Is there anything that shifted for you in terms of like, your orientation towards your writing or how you're feeling as a scholar or anything like that before you even get to the administrative duties and things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it seemed like such this monumental task that I I was afraid of it for so long. And then like taking it bit by bit and getting through it. And then by the end, I'm like, wow, I actually did this thing.
Yes.
Now, now I'm like, I can do this.
Yes.
And it's not as hard as I made it.
Yeah.
And I remember I had people telling me that all along, like, just write it, it'll happen. Well, it's so much easier said than done. But once you do it, I, I've heard people say, they want to write the book and be done.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I found it energizing
Mm-hmm.
and it made me fall in love again with thought, with
Mm-hmm.
process of like reading and researching. And I found it really invigorating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and it made me realize that I actually did want to be a scholar.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I wanted, because I enjoyed it, right?
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like not just to get tenure or something like that, but it's just like this is actually what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, or not to prove something to myself, which was part of it at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to prove to myself that I wasn't, if I didn't get this out, I was going to be a failure or something like.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, no, but it was good to do it because it felt really good and I enjoyed it um and I'm always nervous about things, but I will say that in terms of I could have been department chair. I didn't want to be department chair.
I don't know anybody that wants to be
Yeah.
department chair. Yeah.
But so it's not like I needed that to become a department chair, or I
Right.
needed, to climb the ranks or anything like that. That's not of interest to me. I'm just not aspirational that way. But I did want, I'm so glad I did it and I want to do it. I have another one that I've proposed and
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about the next book was exciting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never thought that would be me.
I
So
love it.
now I
I
just
love
need to
it.
get out of the chair.
Listen, okay, so when did you start the chair position?
Last fall. And
So
the
you've
chair
been in it
before,
a year. Go ahead.
I've been sitting in this chair for a year. That's what it feels
You're
like.
like, it's literally, that's why they call it the chair, because
That,
you just sit in your chair. So you've been
yeah.
doing it for a year. How long is the term?
Well, the previous chair was here, did this for 15 years. I
15
will,
years straight. But that's not the term. She just kept renewing her term.
Yeah, he
Or
was
he.
renewing his term.
I love the way I went to she
I
automatically,
love
but yeah.
that. But no, I don't know if I'm the first woman to hold this chair or not, probably. But um I I've said to the department, I think that this is a service and that we should do it for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way the department originally imagined it, but the
Yeah.
terms just get renewed. And it's very easy. There's this huge learning curve in the
Yeah.
beginning. So, you know, right about the time you're like, I've got to quit or I'll lose my mind, then you start realizing, well, I can't just, I have all these things I need to get in order for the next chair, right?
That's very generous. I don't know that everybody actually approaches it in that way. Like some people just leave things in utter chaos for somebody else to clean up. So I think there's a certain ethic that some people have, but not everyone, to
That's
like want to have things to want to get things in order in a particular way or have things set up in a particular order for somebody who's coming behind them.
Well, I love my colleagues
Hmm.
and care a lot about my students and
Hmm.
I I want us to I want us to do better, but I don't want it to be hmm. I'm trying to figure out how to say this because there's this tendency in the academy in administration, I think, to like want more from everybody.
Yeah.
And in my mindset, I'm like, and part of this comes from being in the writing group,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not about more, it's about supporting people
Yeah.
feel like they have the energy to do the things that they want to do. And I really think that if you support people and do what you can to make them as happy as they can in their position, and then they're going to do good work.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So that's
So
kind of my
I appreciate you naming that because I think so many times the academic structure broadly, but then then even at like the college and then even at the department level, it feels so extractive. And so I imagine the students and the faculty member in your department feeling supported, where it's just like, I'm not trying to extract as much as possible from you. Like, how can I be more supportive of you? And when people feel supported, they like they're doing the thing that they want to do, and that actually is what improves the department, not trying to like bean count every minute of their day and all of this other kind of stuff. So it's actually like counterintuitive to how the institutional structure works, but actually what probably would be more beneficial is if you give people the support that they need to do the things that they love to do, that will translate into improvements across the board because people are, able to do what they want to do with their teaching as well as with their scholarship and other kinds of things. So they are very fortunate to have you in this
that's
position.
very kind. I was
Yeah,
curious, I'm just kind of curious, like
sure.
if from your experience at Penn State,
Hmm.
it was because sometimes I look at institutions and I think that academic institutions are it's like in the movie Napoleon Dynamite from however many years ago that was. He's in Idaho or something like that, and nothing
Hmm.
against Idaho, but I remember like part of what's going on in that film is everything feels like it's 15 years behind or 10 years
Mm-hmm.
behind. And I wonder, getting back to that relationship to the employee as one based on extraction
Hmm.
is dated to me.
Yeah.
And it's one that I just always feel like the academy is catching up
Hmm.
to ideas in corporate America. And I'm not saying there's plenty of corporate in the academy, but like ideas like the 4-day work week,
Hmm.
that have
I don't
no
think the
place in
academy is gonna, I feel like the academy is gonna fold before it gets there, but I'm not as optimistic about about that structure where it's going because I think it has gone the model of corporate, but more in the sense of like downsizing, like how do we strip down every department and just add more labor to the people who are left kind of model.
Mhm.
And then when you see so many people that are being either fired or asked to do early retirements and things like that, it creates this kind of fear, scarcity mentality of like, oh, well, I need to take on this higher load so that I don't become like the people who have been let go
Right.
kind of thing. And so, but that's something that was already a model in corporate. And I think the academy actually adopted the worst aspects of that as opposed to the more innovative, like 4-day work week and other kind
Right.
of things. Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
I think the other thing with the academy is there's more, like, there is a certain level of, kind of independence that you have in terms of like, I mean, you have to show up, say, for whatever your teaching schedule is or whatever the department meetings may be, but you're not like punching a clock, right? Like you don't have to be there at 9 a.m. and then check out at 6 p.m. kind of thing. But what that ends up contributing to is people probably work more hours rather than fewer hours because there isn't like a cutoff so that people are like the work is spilling into the evenings and into the weekends. And even things like the American Philosophical Association, their conference for years, I think they may have recently shifted it, but for many years it was between Christmas and New Year's, right? So that's not conducive to
Oh,
being with family if you have family, right? Like, but I think that was probably created by men who wanted an excuse to get away from their families during the holidays, you know what I mean? So I think there are a lot of things that are not about you know, generative kind of things for the scholar aspect of the or the professor aspect of
right.
the academy. But I think different people, make whatever interventions they can when they're in certain kind of positions. Like so for me, I was interim head twice. I was not interested in a full term as a department head, but I was interim head twice. And, I tried to do as much as I could to like just encourage and affirm people when I was in that position and just do like a kind of coaching model to professional development, especially for junior faculty who were already being extracted from before, so that they're burned out before they even get tenure kind of thing. And so I was really intentional about how I approached being the department head for the interim years that I did it. And those were both times when I kind of stepped in a not necessarily emergency situation, but like they needed somebody to step in a little more urgently than doing like a full search. And I think would have been happy for me to take on a full term, and I was not interested in a full term. I did prefer being the director of the Africana Research Center in terms of administrative work versus being a department head because it's just a different setup. Like as a department head, you're dealing. I mean, I somewhat did hiring with the Africana Research Center because we had postdocs and things like that, but that was more programming and again, like coaching professional development is how I approach that. Versus the department head, you're dealing with annual reviews, you're dealing with tenure and promotion, you're dealing with hiring, you have like the graduate students. There's just a lot more moving parts and a lot more politics
Right.
involved at the department level versus like administration at the kind of running a research center level. So if I had to choose for administration, I preferred directing a research center over being a department head. So I did that multiple, like I was offered a full term. I ended up leaving
Right.
before I fulfilled the full term there. Um, but yeah, so I think the academy is behind in some ways, but also like chasing after like the worst aspects of corporate as opposed to the best aspects. I have the sun really coming
I
in
can
on me.
see the
I'm,
aura.
I'm like, why? What is happening here? But here we go. Okay, there we go.
That's so funny. I was like, as you're
I'm
talking,
like glowing.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like it's getting brighter and brighter.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm glad that they have you there though to take that different approach. I'm wondering what would be helpful for you, right? And this is like you're in La Belle Vie Writers now. You've been able to get in there a few times, and I've been trying to encourage you, like, okay, what would it be like to just take, like, even if it's that first 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. before you get to the emails and the fires and the emergencies, like, what do you feel like holds you back from? Being able to like get in and get that time in with writing in the chair before you deal with the chair duties.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And because I missed all last week, and I'm like looking at my calendar, why did I miss last week? And I, th I think because I was getting excited about returning and doing things. Um, yeah, I think right now as a department chair, it I have to start earlier
Mm-hmm.
to get my time because
Mm,
but I also think it's because of the time of year.
mm-hmm.
So August, September, just so busy.
Mm-hmm.
And um I'm actually hoping I have no meeting in the morning. I'm hoping to join you tomorrow.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Because I have another article that I really want to get out. And,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's forcing yourself to take that time,
Hmm.
um, I don't know why that's so hard when you have other things, but it's like you see the email and you feel like you have to answer the email.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like there's an actual person who's making a demand on you, whereas your book is not. Sometimes it feels like
Yeah.
it, like I have had projects that have felt like spiritually they are making demands on me that need to be met in the same way that a person would. But I think part of it is like there is a person on the other side of the email, or there's a person who's knocking on your door, and there's not the same kind of built-in accountability for the book project as there is for the email or the emergency or the urgent thing that the person is bringing to you. So part of it is just like being intentional about like protecting the time and the again, you connecting to your identity as a scholar, and that as is as important to your overall kind of role there as is this chair role and the responsibilities that come along with that. So it may be a matter of like not actually opening the emails until after you've done your writing, because like 30 minutes is actually not going to make that big of a difference
Right.
in whatever your response to an email may be.
I think you're right. I think it's just I need to have my hour. I need to at least give an hour
Yeah.
in the morning. Um,
So you're even doubling. I'm like, well, just start with 30 minutes. And you're like, I could give at least. But the thing is, like, when you show up for the 30 minutes, that can turn into an hour and that can turn in for 2 hours. Sometimes the hour or the 2 hours feels too big of a chunk. And it's just like, well, if I can't do a whole hour, if I can't do 2 hours, then I won't do anything at all. But it's just like, okay, I can get in 30 minutes. And then once you do the 30 minutes and you're like, oh, actually, I could get in another 30 minutes. Like, I think it's easier to add time on once you're in the flow of it than if it feels like too big a chunk of time, then it's easier to say, well, never mind, I'll just try tomorrow.
yeah, and I think that's what happened to me last week because we've had this huge enrollment push
Hmm.
and that's been that's
A
been
lot.
in the center for the last week. Like it was like an emergency enrollment,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Gotta love the academy.
Or not.
Yeah, I definitely don't mean it.
Well, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in La Belle Vie Writers.
Oh, yes.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or touch on before we wrapped up?
I don't think so. I can't,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, my brain is kind of done.
Listen, I hear you. I hear you on that as well. I hear you on that as well. Well, I'll say I was thinking about just this metaphor with working out and writing because I find it can be similar for some people. Like the writing for me is more, it's habituated for me, so I don't have the same kind of resistance to writing that I've had in the past. But with working out, it's just like there's always like I never am like, oh, I can't wait to work out, right? Like I'm always like dragging myself to whatever the workout is. And then once it's done, I never regret doing the workout. I'm like, I'm so glad that I did the workout. And it's also similar, like I might do like a 20-minute workout and then I'm like, oh, that 20 minutes was great. Let me tag on another, I might do like a strength training and then tag on like a yoga class or something like that. But it's like I have to show up for the first 20 minutes to add on the 20 minutes. But I was just thinking about that this morning when I did the workout. Like I had this moment of like, I literally have to like put my workout clothes on first thing to make sure that I show. It's like I have to set myself up for success with that thing. And whenever I do it, I feel better. I'm glad that I did it. But inevitably, the next day, I'm like having the same debate with myself.
God, what is that? Yeah. And you know what's really funny about that is I remember we had Peloton conversations
Yes,
in the La Belle Vie
yes,
because it was
yes,
the pandemic. Everyone
yes,
couldn't
yes. No, that's exactly right. Because this is like, okay, we have to move our body. And for me, for my writing, actually, initially, like the first writing group that I was in was, it was called Sisters in Writing. They were like junior faculty at Penn State, and we were all like writing our books together and and we were all in different disciplines, different departments. And that's when I first, well, no, I think I didn't, I never was like an athlete or worked out in high school or college. And then I had somebody in my cohort in graduate school who worked out. So I used to work out with her. So that was the first time I ever started even like actually working out outside of just whatever my daily activities were. But when I was tenure track at Penn State, there was like somebody who had played basketball in college, somebody who'd been like a track star in college, and then like me and a couple of other people who were like not athletic at all, who were hanging out with them. But we started training for races together. So we started out with like a 5K, then we did like a 10K, then we did like a half marathon together. And so it was a beautiful way of like making sure we were moving our bodies even while we were doing these projects that required a lot of sitting and reading and writing and things like that. But it was helpful for me to learn pacing because it was like, okay, I couldn't roll out of bed and run a half marathon, but I
Mhm.
could pace myself with like, okay, I can train for a 5K and then add on to that a 10K and then add on to that like a few more miles for a half marathon. And there was something about that physiological training and pacing that helped me with like, okay, the book's not going to get written in a week, but I have to have a plan and pace myself through the book project. So it was a very good kind of simultaneity to that when I was working on my first book. But it was also in community, right? So like I wasn't going to train for a half marathon by myself, but there was something about the built-in accountability of meeting up with friends, and we would chat and we would catch up while we were doing the reading, and then we would do that with the writing as well. So, it's one of the things that have oriented me toward community and the way that I am, that I built that into like what I do with La Belle Vie Academy and La Belle Vie Writers too.
Isn't it funny though? Like it's such a how important community is for all of this,
Yeah.
yet it's the thing that is most discouraged. I mean, it was really in many
Yeah,
ways
capitalism hates
discouraged.
community,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
but
like
yes,
you're
I,
encouraged to isolate yourself and do things on your own and not do things like in community, but it's just like the individualist model is just not going to work. Like it never worked, but certainly not in these times. Like we have a serious imperative. Like there's always been an imperative toward community, but I think now more than ever, it's the only way to move forward.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I doing, brilliance in isolation, that was a myth anyway, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And
Oh,
of course, a lot of the people that are upheld as these geniuses, got their ideas from other people who were told they had nothing to contribute to the world. You know what I
exactly.
mean? So, yeah. Well, it was great to talk to you.
Oh,
I'm
this
glad we
is
got a chance
awesome.
to catch up and talk about all the things. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
I now I'm going to be there.
Now,
Maybe
I know. You feel obligated now.
I'll see you at 10. I may not make the first hour.
You don't have to be as you're welcome at any point in that first block. But it's not pressure. Well, it's positive peer pressure. It's positive peer
I
pressure.
love it. It's great. Great.
All right. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, Catherine. Great to see you.
No problem. You too.